First of all, Davey, thank you so much for sitting down with me. This is the second now interviews that I've done with past clients, and I really appreciate the fact that my clients, I think care for me enough that they're willing to sit down and talk about their experiences, their learnings, and I so first of all appreciate that. You were one of the very first clients that I worked with professionally, and for me this is really my holy grail. This is where I'm speaking with a client who was a referred to me. And we'll talk, I think, maybe a little bit here about JT who referred us, and then now sitting down and doing a referral. So for me, that's really what I would consider my holy grail. And so the essence of the reason that I do these interviews like this is because, one, if there's something that I can share that can help somebody within my community, even if we're not working together as clients, then that's what I want to be, is somebody that's providing value to anybody that can use it. And then two, if there's anybody out there that's considering working with me as a client, I want to give them the reasons to make the phone call and just sign up and go ahead and get to work, because I think that's really how the work gets going. So we had known each other from before. We'd been at the same gym as JT, and we'd
Yep.
kind of all known each other. But then I started working with JT. He was actually my client number one. And I think through a conversation that you guys had, and you guys had been friends for a while and had way more intimate conversations than you and I would have ever had, just, in between Metcons right at the gym.
Yeah.
Right. So fortunately, he was this great referral. So with all of that being said, when our first few sessions together, it I think it dawned on me that you're this unique set of circumstances that you were up against in the CFO role. And remind me, that was your first. Is that your first CFO role?
Yeah.
Right. So maybe I don't even know if that there was a question from there, but I've been doing a lot of talking in the tee up, and I should really ask you if there's any points there that you wanted to interject.
Um, I think that, I can just say it without feeling bad that it was a toxic environment, not in the fact that they were bad people or I was a bad person. It's like when you get two inert chemicals and you mix them together and it creates poison.
Right.
It just wasn't a good fit, and it was bleeding into my personal life and causing me a lot of uncomfortableness and pain. And I think that with working with you, I was able to structure it a lot better there. Um, but it still just wasn't a great fit. And they actually made the decision for me to say sayonara. Um, and still working with you, that could have been a crisis moment in my life, and instead it was like an inflection point.
Mm, right.
Because I had all of those tools and structure in place,
Right.
and I didn't cocoon up and collapse and
Right.
have a midlife crisis.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I think that is a perfect segue to really where I wanted to head, which is one of the first thing that we really focused on was a focus on the fundamentals, right? And I know you had a lot of these things that you had demonstrated in your life prior to us either meeting, and not to say that you were at a particular low point, but it felt like when we started working together, you might have been at a particular low point. And there were things that you had even done in the past. I think like even your physical exercise, right? Was like we had met at the gym at one point. And when we met, it was at maybe like a low inflection point, and you weren't, because I know eventually you started getting more out and like riding the mountain bike and things of that nature. And so we had done a lot of focusing on the fundamentals, and I'm big on talking about nutrition. So it's eating, it's moving, it's sleeping, all those kind of things. And I would ask you specific questions when we get together get together, I usually ask my clients, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how have you done in the last couple of weeks on nutrition? Just give me a number, right? What's your current number right now on nutrition for the last 2 weeks?
Not good.
No,
There's been so many holiday parties and
calling you out on the podcast.
yeah,
It with that question aside, so the focus on the fundamentals overall, I want to talk about that, like how that helped you stabilize, right? Because you were just talking about like that upset condition where it was this inflection point for you. And my hunch is that the focus on the fundamentals was a big part of the foundation of that inflection. And then my suspicion would be those fundamentals are still a big part of your ideal life today. And your thoughts on that.
yeah, but it's so funny because when I first started working with you, like you challenged me a lot, and some of those things that you challenged me to do, it felt like pulling my own teeth. It was not easy, but I guess it's with anything. Like when you put into repetition, it gets easier and easier, and a lot of times like I don't have to think about it anymore. Like I just wake up and it's like,
Inherent.
what am I grateful for today? Or I
Mm,
go to sleep and it's, hey, what are the couple things that happened today that really stood out, you know?
right.
And I even remember probably 6 weeks ago or so, I had a really bad day at work
Okay.
and I kind of let it get to me. I was pouting, just call it what it is. And then all these reports came out about what happened like over in Israel
Okay.
with the Hamas
Sure.
attack. And I just talked to myself and it was like, you're being a, I used the B word, and you're being a, like, stop. Your kids are healthy. Your house isn't blown up. Like, look at what people, like real stuff people are dealing with.
Right.
And just,
Automatic perspective.
yeah, snap you back into focus. And I was like, I'm sitting at my house working. This is a dream come true. Why am I pouting?
Right.
Like, all right, here we go. And it just and then I looked back and I wonder um if it's just a coincidence, but it was like Friday the 13th, and I don't know, there was some bad voodoo in the air that that's why I felt that way for like 2 hours.
Right.
But
But you were able to snap right back
yeah,
by using perspective, by using gratitude.
yep.
That's a wonderful example.
And I've realized, you know, and I think I even mentioned it in that review that part of my life has been marred by depression and anxiety. But that is, I look back at that and that's because I didn't have the fundamentals going. Like, um, I it was after Thanksgiving. I was again for like 20 minutes. I was pouting because I was didn't have um, a female companion hanging on my arm during the family time, you know.
Hmm.
And I was like, after about 20 minutes, I was like, I don't want to feel this way the rest of the day. So I just dropped and did 200 push-ups
That'll do it.
and just changed my mindset. I was so happy and just had a great rest of the day, you know. I
Nice.
was sore for like 6 days.
Right.
Um,
But another cool reframe,
yeah,
right? Where you took the situation, hey, I have these feelings coming up, and then you took another positive action, right? In
yeah.
spite of that. Super cool. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, I know this was kind of a segue on the top of gratitude, but the other thing that I really wanted to get you focused on, and I think you've done a marvelous job of this, is more of that future visioning, right? Because I think a lot of times when I work with clients, like when we first started working together, you have this very, short, myopic view of what's happening in your life. You're going through transition in your personal life and things of that nature. You're maybe having a difficult you've already articulated like a difficult time at work where it's
Hmm.
not a good fit up and to and including even toxic, type environments. And it can really force you into this kind of myopic, you know, current focused view, which is, always super important because you're living in the now. But one of the things that we started to really work on was a future visioning and focus. And one of the things that I'm, I guess, either famous or infamous for is getting my clients to look out into the future. Sort of 1 year to 5 year ish is my kind of sweet spot, because once you start getting closer to 5 years, you can do what I say to my clients, which is you can start writing down some semi scary shit, right? Which is
Yeah.
things that you don't necessarily have to have a plan built for. So just talk about you don't have to have great detail here, but talk about future visioning and what your life looks like now and going out into the future, just whatever you might want to share about that.
Well, I feel like my life now looks like when I pop out of bed, head to the sauna. That's like my I'm not disciplined enough to like sit down and just meditate.
Hmm.
So by going to the sauna and being uncomfortable, that last I so yesterday I made it. I didn't get to the sauna today yet. Yesterday I made it 22 minutes, and that last 6 or 8 minutes is very uncomfortable.
Intense.
And I just have to be present.
Hmm.
I have to focus on my breathing, and it just kind of resets me. Um, then I do cold plunge, and then it's like rainbows and unicorns. I focus on what I'm grateful for, and it just excuse me. One of the things I've learned with in speaking with you is that previous me would get up in the morning and either check my emails, which is now it's a fire drill, or I would scroll through social media, which is unhealthy.
Right.
And that's how I would frame my day. But now it's the complete reverse. And it's, get a little bit of me time, have some I call it grateful time.
Sure.
That's kind of funny that I'm like grateful for my grateful time. But it is
I love it. Your life's working right then.
yeah. And it's like things can happen that before would have set me off kilter. And now it's like, no big deal.
Love that.
I mean, even so much as like, I don't get mad in the car anymore.
Right.
I don't,
With other drivers and
yeah,
things of that nature. Right.
yeah.
A
And
new, I've probably not used this term with you. I don't use it that often, but I call that like locus of control, right? When that
yeah,
locus of control is inside of you. Very stoic.
absolutely.
Mr. Aurelius, right? Would
And,
it,
and I think it's a combination of a couple of things. Like, A, it's framing the day and being in the right mindset to start with. So it's like, if you're up here and something happens and you're still elevated,
right.
no big deal. But then also by focusing on those other fundamentals where I'm stressing my body and mind out in a controlled fashion, then when it's uncontrolled, I can still get back into control, if that
Right.
makes sense,
Yeah. Back to your center.
Yeah.
Right. Love that. So where I wanted to go next was professional. And I wanted to share this with the audience because I think there's so many people that struggle. The term that gets thrown around a lot these days is called imposter syndrome. And when we were working together, it never really seemed to be like on that gravity for me of what you were articulating. But I remember like I was going back through our notes just reviewing, and there was one time you said to me, like, Jeff, I don't feel like a CFO, right? And again, I think to frame that, it might have been because you've had a really interesting career where you've been through, like the mortgage and stuff like that. But you ended up in a CFO role again. I think because you're like a super bright guy, and then you had, and this is going to be a fun transition later to the tech sales, where you've got like this unique bias towards like systems and things of that nature.
Hmm.
So I don't recall if that's where the, like I don't feel like a CFO came from, whether it was spawn out of, and maybe it was a little bit of both, right? Maybe if there was some imposter there, or if it was just the fact that you've had like this unique career where like, accounting and finance hasn't been like your entire career trajectory. Just any thoughts in general about, that?
I think, yeah, a couple thoughts. I think that imposter syndrome was probably due to the fact that subconsciously or unconsciously, I knew that I didn't like have an exit strategy there. That
Mm,
wasn't a career. That wasn't. There was no place to go.
mm,
Um,
and toxic
yeah, and there was no upward
mobility.
mobility.
Mm,
But I wasn't allowing myself to focus on that.
mm,
And so I remember you forced me. I did not do this on my own. You forced me to write down what I wanted in a career.
right.
And I remember being terrified of it because I told you, I was like, well, what if I don't get that? And you were like, what if you do? And that was it.
Right.
And I did get it.
Right.
Like, and I put some wild expectations down there. And I've got a career that's blew 'em out of the water.
Right.
Like, I can't believe it. I mean,
Let's go there then. That I'm skipping over one of my other questions, but let's go there since you kind of segued to that. So you ended up making this transition from CFO, and maybe again that wasn't your, I don't even know to call it not your ideal role, because I think you flourished in the actual role. It was probably either the company style and or maybe this like glass ceiling effect that you were feeling, which could have been either the company or the role.
it's more the role.
The role.
And it
Okay.
doesn't matter what company, because I often joke and say that I'm a recovering finance professional.
Okay.
And so my company's 100% remote, but there's about 12 that are here in the Phoenix metro area.
Okay.
So we went on a little holiday get together dinner
Okay.
on last Monday.
Okay.
And I was sitting next to the director of people and the assistant controller. And they, for about 10 or 15 minutes, kind of complained about how much work there is and how they're working infinite hours and it's just gets
It's
piled on. And I was like,
an instant reminder.
yeah, that's why I'm recovering.
Right. I love that. It's working well for you. Well, let's go into detail. So, this was a pretty monumental transition, and that's where I wanted to go next. That was actually specifically what my question was going to be about, because I literally challenged you to say, "Okay, you have this transition ahead of you. Why not go ahead in advance and decide everything you want before you even get started on the search," right? And I know that felt very strange to you. It felt maybe even not inappropriate, but like, why am I going to waste? I think that's what you were just alluding to, right? Like, why am I going to waste my time? What if I don't get it? Right?
Hmm.
Was there any more to that initial feeling, or was that summarizing?
That was, well, I think I was just, I don't know if I was afraid of success or failure or both,
Right.
you know? Um, but like putting it down on paper, like made it real.
Yeah. What now? Here's a fun question. I'm going to segue all the way to the end. Now we flash forward to today, and you've gotten what you wrote down.
Yeah. In everything.
Yes.
I mean, my manager, like, I've cried with her. She's cried with me, like, and she is the perfect manager for me because I tend to bend the rules a little bit.
Okay. The
Um,
CFO who colors outside the lines.
yeah, and she'll like she'll look me straight in the eye and be like, "Don't effing do that again."
Right. Reel
And I'm
you
like,
in.
"Got it. Not gonna do that anymore." Because if
Okay.
I had a manager who was like, maybe next time you should try to do this or try to do that,
Right.
it's too squishy for me.
Right.
And she just
Reels you in.
Yeah, and she
I know you mentioned a couple of these things, but I just wrote these down in my notes. So when you created this ideal position, I think we've already said you wanted to work remotely, and you are. You wanted a fantastic company culture, right? Which we've already compared and
huge.
contrasted what you have now versus toxic is what you had before. A supportive boss, which is what you were just kind of riffing on right there. But then how about these next parts, which I don't think we've talked about, which is you wanted room to grow your skill set. You wanted room to grow, like we were talking before, old organization had glass ceilings. So you wanted room for advancement, maybe we'll call it. You wanted you want to be able to grow your salary, right? Which all of us want to be able to do with this, upward trajectory. And then the last thing was, oh, you wanted to work with a company that worked with great tools. I remember you saying like this was kind of odd to me because like I'm not even really a techie guy, so I don't get like working with good, software and hardware and things of that nature, but you are that guy, so that was important to you. So anyway, there was just a handful of other things that you had on your original vision for this organization, which I'm pretty sure you've gotten all of that. But
All of
but riff on just any of that or all of it.
Yeah, because this is my first um foray, I guess, into the sales world. And when you mention a company with great tools, like I'm selling a phenomenal tool that I have a ton of alignment with. And in sales, so there's either mercenaries or there's missionaries. And I don't know if I could ever be a mercenary.
Right.
Um,
Not in your personality.
yeah,
Right.
but I'm like genuinely excited about this tool. I use it on a daily basis. I mean, so you said that you were not techie or whatever. So I spent 15 years learning database languages, learning um, reporting, dashboards, all that type of stuff. So me and you, if we were just given a computer and say, "Hey, go build a dashboard," obviously I'm going to do it a lot quicker.
Hmm.
But with the tool that I sell, we can type in a question at the same speed, and we're on a level playing field, and that's why I think it's so cool because
Technology that augments like somebody's lack of skill, right? And brings me to a level playing field with a person that's worked 15 years in the field.
yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
how neat it is,
You
and,
just
and
sold me right there in the last 30 seconds. So you're getting really good at this stuff.
yeah, and it solves a real world problem, which I'm excited about too, because the legacy way of doing it is having an executive say, "Oh, I need this KPI, I need this report,"
Right.
waiting 2 weeks,
Right.
getting it, saying, "Ah, not quite right,"
Right.
and it's just this infinite loop
Right.
where now it's instantaneous. Get the answer they need, move on.
That's phenomenal.
It's so fun.
Phenomenal. So it would be fair to say that you've essentially gotten everything, not only that you wanted, but here's how I would say it, you've gotten what you decided you want before you even went looking.
Yeah. I mean, everything that I wanted. I mean, even to the point where we're closed down next week. This is going to be the first New Year's Eve
That you've
that
ever.
that I get to not work.
Right.
I don't have to close the books.
How cool. How cool.
Yeah.
So now let me ask you about the future. Do you think that or maybe you already have, taken the same model that you applied to get what you want here and apply that to the future for whatever might be in front of you for the future? Does it feel like this is a repeatable skill, a repeatable process?
It is a repeatable process, but one thing that I've adjusted a little bit is that my long-term goals, I make them a little bit more ambiguous.
Okay.
And I learned that when I first got into when I first was trying to get into tech sales, I had my heart set on this company that was a an accounting automation software.
Okay.
And I went like 7 interviews with them, and then it didn't go anywhere. I think. the Lord,
Okay.
because why would I want to get back into accounting? I
Right.
was trying to get out of it. But I felt like such a failure, but it was because my short-term goal was, oh, I'm going to get a job at this company,
Mm,
rather than, oh, I'm going to get a job like that has all these characteristics, not pinning it at a certain company.
sure.
And it ended up working out so much better now. And so that's what I kind of do in the long-term goals, where if I were to say, oh, I want to be a in 5 years, I want to be a majors account executive at ThoughtSpot. Sure, that'd be great, but in 5 years, I want to be a major account executive. Maybe that's at ThoughtSpot.
Period.
Maybe that's at somewhere else,
Right.
because that just opens it up for so many
Sure.
more opportunities.
Trust the process, allow things to happen.
Yep.
Right. Love
Yeah.
that. Love that. Okay. So there were a couple of other, I want to also just like give you a ton of credit right here, because when you made this transition, maybe I can take credit for getting you to ask these questions of yourself like you did and now answered them and you're living them. But you also did a couple of other things. Like I remember you went and hired even this other coach that was super specific about the industry that you wanted to be in.
Hmm.
I remember the detail of the plan that you built on your own. You built a plan in conjunction with him where you were literally like scripting out the conversations that you were going to have with these ideal organizations. And you guys came up with a list of organizations that literally fit the model, that would have the growth, that would have all of these other things that you wanted in the questions. And then not only did you hire good help, you built a great plan, but then again, I think this is just another Davy Meat like intuitive thing. You really went to work on the process, right?
Yep.
And so just anything that comes up for you there on that part of the equation.
Just I think, with working with you, I learned so much, but part of it was just to not be afraid to live with intention, and to move forward, no matter what life gives you.
Right.
Move forward. It's going to be okay. And I think, like, I had a lot of things stacked against me. I was far older than most people getting into this role.
Hmm.
The um, the the interest rates were rising. The tech funding was going away,
Right.
and like, I often look at my life and I'm like, man, I make all these decisions, and they're always like 10 years too late. But maybe it's just it was the right time for me,
Right.
you know. And yeah, I look now about just how much fun I'm having in life, and I think it's kind of like go to the gym. Like,
Right.
if you show up that first day and you're 40, 60 pounds overweight, it's not very fun.
Right.
But once you get in there, once you drop that weight, once you're starting to hit those PRs,
Right.
and it's like, this
It
is a
changes.
blast, and
It changes.
it's addicting, and you don't want to miss it,
Right.
you know?
Okay. Last couple of questions for you. So, first of all, specifically, any tools or any other things that we worked on together that maybe I haven't asked a specific question about that you think would be helpful for the community?
We've mentioned it several times, so this is not a question answer your question, but just focusing on gratitude. That is such a huge part of my life now, and it's so important. And I think that I don't think you ever said this explicitly, but it was through the actions that we discussed, and the framework that you kind of helped me create.
Hmm.
But basically, you gave me a new lens to be responsible for my life,
Mm,
which I don't think I necessarily was.
okay.
and I don't think I was being responsible. Like I wanted to be happy. Like you can't just like I will always remember it. One of my friends telling me like, "Well, if you want to be happy, then just choose happiness." And I just wanted to punch him in his face.
Right.
And I was like, "It's not that easy." But you can choose happiness through a series of seemingly infinitesimal small choices.
Yep.
And
Decisions,
yeah, and I had lost
actions.
focus of that.
Right. So a
And
structure,
yeah,
right? A structure that leads to happiness.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think also it gave me the idea. You had mentioned getting a coach to help me get into tech sales because
Hmm.
before working with you, I was kind of stuck in the mire a little bit because it's weird. I had too much confidence in certain areas, not enough confidence in other areas,
Mm,
and in learning that it's okay to ask people for help.
right.
It's like, hey, this guy's done it 50 times. Why am I going to do it alone
Right.
on my own?
Or struggle and try to
Yeah.
walk this path by yourself
Yeah.
versus like what you did when you hired that tech guy. In my mind, I believe in like hiring good advice,
Yep.
like good doctors, good attorneys, good tax people, good financial planners. And then you don't take anybody's advice chapter and verse, but you hire really good advice. You take all that in, and then you use your own personal intuition to decide what's your best path
Hmm.
and way forward. Yeah. Okay, so very last question for you. Let's say there's somebody out there in my audience that is an audience member that is considering coaching, but is maybe a little bit on the fence about hiring a coach. And I mean, I know you've had coaches before athletically and things of that nature, but I think our relationship together was maybe the first paid coaching, or
Yep.
maybe you had some organizationally through the organization. Maybe I don't recall.
No,
What would you say to somebody that was thinking about coaching or maybe on the fence about that, or just about me specifically now after having done the work together?
I would I would say that like it's probably not a good fit if somebody just says like, "Oh, I want to have a coach." Like I would tell that an individual who's thinking about it to like evaluate their life. And if there's an area in their life that they want to improve, like maybe you could do it on your own, but why like have somebody that'll give you the fast track, that'll give you the structure and the tools that you don't even might not even know exist or that are out there, and help you focus and improve your life. And when you're done with it, it's like almost like a dichotomy. Like I look back at the work that I did and it's like I did that work. That was
Hmm.
me.
Hmm.
But at the same time, it's almost like you were like the rudder on my ship, kind of just steering me on where I needed to go.
Hmm.
Um, because before I was just going in circles.
Right.
You gave me a purpose, and I also like what is it? I'm trying to come up with like some commercial where the guy's like, "I'm not only the CEO of this company, I'm also a client," or
The
whatever.
hair club for
Yeah,
I own the company.
yeah. But like, I want to come back to you and uh, restart the coaching
Go
again.
next level.
Yeah, once I get my promotion,
Okay.
then I'll have some. Because once I got into this role, it was a bit of a cut, and I just had to cut all expenses.
Sure.
And so, but once I get into that role, I'll have some disposable income and
Then it's time to level up.
level up again. It's like, and it's almost like I look at my life and I'm like, life is great, but could it be a little bit better?
Always.
Yeah, why not?
Always.
Why not?
Let's get to asking some different questions,
Yeah,
right?
and
We'll
I'm
find a way.
and I'm sure you're gonna make me uncomfortable again, but
That's my job.
yeah, but it's being uncomfortable. It is part of like they call it growing pains.
Right.
They don't call it growing nices.
Right.
Like no matter what you do,
Right.
physically, mentally, emotionally, and you stretch and you grow, and then that's your now your level set.
Right. And I've been doing a lot of podcasts here lately, like guesting on podcasts. And it's one of the things that I say a lot to those audiences is if you look back across your entire life, you usually look at the things that were the most difficult. And sometimes it's the transitions or the inflection points that have the most significance. I mean, childbirth is a great example. Now, you and I won't, we have the better half of that experience,
Yep.
right? But how is it that a new human life can only come through that much pain, right? And that's after carrying that child for 9 months, which is its own brand
Yeah.
of pain and discomfort, right? And then only to get to the end and you have this monumental thing to overcome. So I'm pretty famous or maybe infamous again for saying, look back at the things in your life. For me, military experience or 2-a-days on a football field or any of these kind of things that it is those tough scenarios in life that end up being, the most pivotal for our future.
And that analogy about a child this fits so well with me because I'd always thought I was a good dad, but a lot of the structure that you gave me, I implemented in my kids' lives,
Hmm.
and now I feel like I'm a great dad, and people comment on how well behaved and how easy my kids are, and it's like because I put a little bit of work in at the
I
beginning.
bet you that feels good.
Yeah, yeah, like just little things too, like pushing them out of their comfort zone and
Right.
go to the grocery store and I'm like, okay, you're gonna go over to the deli counter and you're gonna order the lunch meat, and you're gonna go, you know, to the aisle and get the cereal.
Yep.
And if you can't find it, you need to ask somebody who works here.
Right.
And then having them complete that task and then having the person that works there like, wow, your kids are so great.
Right.
Like,
And they're building their confidence and
yeah,
getting outside of their shell. That's a wonderful example. Perfect. Well, Davey, thank you so much for taking the time with me today to share your story, your experiences about our work together. And I truly, truly
my pleasure.
appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.